Welcome to aQua. In this video, I will give you a brief introduction to the time series animation feature. So if we load in some data into the user interface here, we've got the state of Colorado data is aggregated by county. If we go down here to time series analysis, spatial comparison, we can select a couple of measurements here and then go to the animation tab once that request comes back. And we can select a couple of those fields to do for an animation. So we can select average water temperature as the color field and measurement availability for water temperature as the elevation field. I'll adjust the map a little bit here. And then when I click this animate button, or I might have to click it down here, we can see that now the map will update every couple of seconds, displaying the averages and availability for the time range displayed right here. Now, this feature is still under development, so it's not quite perfect yet. Eventually, these little buttons here will allow you to toggle between adjacent time ranges. The pause will pause the animation, and this will allow you to change the speed of the animation. So if these counties are just missing, that means there's no data during that time range. So we can see that these counties didn't have any data, between April 22nd, 2017 and January 24th, 2024. So I'll click animate again, and we can see that one more time. We'll also notice here that the legend and the legend bin distribution update with every subsequent time range. So this feature is really useful for seeing how spatial extents change over time relative to each other. So, during that animation, we can see that we get some significantly higher water temperatures here in eastern Colorado at this Mesa County here, and we can also see that some of these western counties really approach that sort of deep red end of the legend spectrum. We can go back and change this to pH if we're interested in a different thing to look at. So we'll look at average pH in color and then the measurement availability for pH. We can also actually do something like water temperature for elevation. So we can look at pH in color and water temperature for elevation if we want to see sort of how these two things interact. So we can see right there, there's one county that has a spike in water temperature that shows up in, the mid 90s and then goes away. And there's not a whole lot else that's interesting from the water temperature perspective because that one spike is sort of dominating the whole data space. So let's go back here and let's change water temperature to color and let's change pH to the elevation field and have another look at that. So we've got a lot of uniformity in terms of the elevation field, which is pH here. So there's not a ton of variability in those values across the counties, it looks like. And we can come back and do this one more time. Let's look at average pH and measurement availability for pH. So we'll go back down here and click the play button. So we can see there that we lost a lot of the deep red. So we actually started with higher values for pH. They got lower in the 60s, higher again in the 70s and 80s and 90s. Southern Colorado is seeing a lot higher values there in the early 2000s, and then the mid 2000s, we see these red colors are showing up here on the the eastern plains of Colorado, and these counties kind of stay red for a little while. So if we run that again, we can look at this western part of the state is where the deep red starts. So we have higher values of pH earlier on. They kind of migrate here into the center of the state. We get a couple of the darker reds up there again. Here in the early 2000s, we're seeing the deeper reds in the south. And then mid 2010s, 2010s and again into the 2020s, we're seeing that those deep red counties that have, the highest values of pH have migrated from the west side of the state over to the east side of the state. So that's just an example of how, this animation feature is really useful for, observing and visualizing these spatial trends and data over time. This concludes our video. Thank you so much for watching.